It is with the greatest joy that I welcome Mr. Stephen Eccles from Eccles Physiotherapy on the Warren Point Road in Newry, just down beyond Kyo's wonderful garage there.
Absolutely.
You are my...
We're still hoping for the free car, aren't we?
Well, we'll tell you, it'll be on. Nah, we do. We're fabulous. We're good at it. We don't need anything like that.
We don't.
No,
We don't.
you've got your bike. I describe him as my bike and back man because he's made my back better. And I was doing judo the other day here in Sydney.
Really?
You would have been so proud of me.
Tell me.
Now, I wasn't standing up and throwing and bean throwing.
Okay, good.
I was working at close quarters on the mat with Martin
right.
Savage.
Oh, yeah.
And
yeah.
Martin paid me the most... Two things happened. Martin paid the most lovely compliment. He said, Rowan, it's amazing. We last did judo together when... It was 1978. And
Yeah.
your girls were at it and you were at it, blah, 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 blah. And he said, by gum, he said, you're still very strong.
There you
So I was
go.
very
Well,
pleased
that's
about
nice.
that.
Good for you.
And then the next morning,
Yeah.
I discovered when I was putting on my... Normally when I put on my trousers, I was sort of going like this here to get in.
Yeah.
The other morning after the judo, bing, bang, I was able to move better.
Good,
So I was
lovely.
consolidating in the judo all the things that you had been teaching me,
Well, good,
which
good.
is important, you know.
Yeah, you know, sometimes I think that exercise, sometimes the exercise we do is too structured. You know, we get on a bike and we sit in that position and do the same thing, or we swim. And kids, you know, I know Joseph Pilates was a big one for just kind of goofing around and rolling about and wrestling and play. You know, that children's play, you know, in that unformed way, getting up and running and rolling over, and just keeps them really nice.
Of course, whether it be
mobile.
human babies or chimpanzee babies,
Yes.
babies, whatever a small chimpanzee
Yes,
is called.
yeah. A chimplet.
A chimplet. Yeah, no, that's done by...
I'm sure
I'm
not.
sorry, chimplets are done by McCain's and
Yes,
you deep
yes,
fry
that's
them, you do them in the oven. But
That's right.
whether it be a child, a human child or a chimpanzee child,
Yeah.
I think nature has designed us to, in the movements that they do as babies and throwing around and rolling around,
Yeah.
to allow the normal development of joints and cartilage and all the rest of it.
Yes.
What do you think? Yeah.
I know. I absolutely agree. Which actually brings me along to what I was hoping to talk about
What would
today.
you like to talk about?
Well, I'd like to talk about exercise,
Yes.
and that a number of times in the last month I've had people who some of whom have not done exercise for many years and then started, and then others who've been exercising throughout their lives but really upped it a little bit lately. And I just feel that when you get to middle age, which you and I are both approaching,
Love your style. Yeah.
that I think that we should maybe think about allowing our bodies to mature through exercise, so that instead of saying, oh, I want to run and I want to run a marathon because that will prove my manhood or some sort of last gasp at youth.
Boom, the spear is thrown.
Yes, rather to take up something to enjoy yourself rather than to punish yourself, because a lot of people you see out exercising don't look like they're having much fun. I remember there was a guy when I lived in San Francisco. We were all out on our bikes killing ourselves, and there was a guy who was a Rastafarian, you know, the whole
Remind me to tell you a Rastafarian story in a moment.
okay,
Right, keep going.
and he had his racing bike handles turned up way. You remember
Yeah. So he
way
could sit up straight?
So he could sit up straight, and he rode at about half the speed of everybody else, and smiled and laughed and waved, and I just thought, man, he's the one having the most fun here, and surely that's what it's all about. I think that if you I'm particularly worried about these boot camps where people who've sat behind a desk for a number of years, and instead of slowly maturing their cartilages, their bones, their muscles, they're doing ridiculous things. They're being forced to run, pick up weights and do speed
It's
weights.
not what we should be doing.
Really not.
Even I, a foolish fellow, know the folly of that sort of carry-on.
Yes.
It's nonsense.
Yes, it is nonsense. And I think, you know, that for people like that, you know, taking the dogs out for a walk, you know, I tell you, you know, the big wood, I don't know, it's pretty much empty every time I go there.
That's
and it's
on the Warren Point Road.
Yeah, halfway down to Warren Point.
Yeah, there's a quarry there where all the fellows and the bikes go. You go the other way, they go up that way, you go out into the wood.
You can go both ways.
Yeah.
And it's just so beautiful up there.
Yeah.
So lovely. They've done a little bit of clearing there, so there's a whole.
Yeah. So health is coming to your physicality and to your mental area as well.
Absolutely. So
hugely important.
And I really do think that we need to think about what we're going to do, enjoy it, and allow the body to slowly mature. So I think that, you know, if you did want to start running, you'd probably need to do 6 months of walking.
Can I ask
before
you about
you take your first
run? You more than any other living human being, except the women in my life, and there aren't too many of those anymore.
Right.
Sadly,
I'm not sure where this is going.
Sadly. But you, more than any other human being, know about my body parts and my joints and my stiffnesses and my awkwardnesses and all of this. I am convinced that I should not run.
I think I would.
And I am equally convinced that walking with proper shoes will do me no harm at all. And do me nothing but good.
I agree.
So take a leaf from the guru.
You know, there's a little cruise of guys, silver-headed guys, and they walk up and down the Warren Point Road.
They do.
They walk all far afield. Everywhere you go, you see them, and they talk, and they look the picture of health. And I just love that. I think that's a great thing for them.
You see, with my proper shoes, with the orthotic in it, in the shoes, in them, because there's an orthotic for each foot, giving support. You know the state of degradation of my joints. Walking in that context, it's not going to kill me.
I don't think so.
And
I
don't think the joint will deteriorate sufficiently to have me unable to walk in 30 years' time.
No, I mean, I think that sometimes people get osteoarthritis for a number of different reasons. But I think that if you continue to walk through your life, keeping healthy and active, and don't overdo it, I think that's the best way. Certainly sitting in front of the TV, apart from if you watch Destination Nuri, of course.
You get good advice.
Yeah.
We keep you right.
With too much rest, the joint thicknesses, that the cartilage becomes thinner. So if after 5 or 6 weeks in a plaster cast, for example, joints in the knee, an X-ray will show you that the cartilage is thinned out, which is amazing, really, if you think about it.
Absolutely. You mentioned. Sorry, go.
Yeah, no. So I was just going to say that constant, moderate exercise, I think, is a wonderful thing, and will do us all good, and we don't get injured doing it.
And you know, you're almost talking yourself out of business.
No, absolutely.
You know, we'd have less need for the physiotherapist.
We would, and that would be a good thing.
Absolutely.
More happiness in the world.
More happiness in the world. And the Rastafarian man on 5th Avenue in New York.
Yes.
I'm standing in the middle of 5th Avenue.
Yes.
Out on a traffic island. The yellow taxis, zoom, 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 zoom.
Right.
My cameraman is here. I'm delivering an into-camera piece. My sound man is beside the cameraman. He's a New Yorker. It's an Irish cameraman who came over with us.
Yeah.
And I'm about to introduce Andrew Sachs, who's presenting the program for me.
Right.
And I'm there. And Andrew is standing off to the one side, and I'm there talking to the camera, delivering and welcome to 5th Avenue in New York. The iconic yellow taxis are here. Watch in the hump on the hill, and you see them come, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And I have this uneasy feeling.
Yeah.
I'm not sure why. And I look around, and there's this fellow with his hat, multicolored hat, and dreadlocks.
Yeah.
He looks about 8 feet tall, and he's walking around me, just looking up like this. I go to the Simon off. What's going on here? Somebody, don't worry. So he goes over and he gave him $10 or whatever.
Yeah.
And the fellow went away, and that was the end.
Right.
Of it. And it was just Rastafarian. I love the image of the fellow with the Rastafarian head, the dreadlocks and the hat on his handlebars up bicycle.
Yeah.
That was one of the things. I need to do that with my bike, because in leaning forward onto the bike, and there were straight handlebars, but even in leaning forward, I was not in a good posture for my back.
Yes, yeah.
And my weight was hammering my hands onto the bars. Whereas if I was sitting upright, I've got the straight column of the back.
Yes, yeah.
And no pressure on my hands.
Yeah, no,
So
it's good. The only thing is you become less aerodynamic then.
Aerodynamic is not a relevant factor in my aging life, dear boy.
Okay.
You know,
right.
I tell you, men's health is very important, because I was talking to a man yesterday, Ian Banks, Dr. Ian Banks. We have him on the program today.
Yes.
Ian was talking. He's the president of the European Men's Health Forum.
Okay.
He was on my program yesterday, talking about everything that you can think of.
Yes.
You know, the obvious things, as he referred to them, the hairy dangly bits. My God, I said, this is family television, stop this thing. What you talking about, man? But he said that men often think the only thing is between their knees and their navel, and everything else they ignore. Their mental health they ignore.
Right.
Their heart health they ignore. And figures out today from the society, the heart, chest and stroke people are saying that we're the highest in the world almost, and Belfast particularly bad in cardiovascular deaths.
Yeah.
But the things you're talking about now, you're giving people a modus vivendi, a method of life that will allow them to live long.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, and enjoy themselves more. You know.
Absolutely.
You feel good after you exercise.
You do. I felt, as I say, I felt great after the judo, which is good.
Yeah.
But then I'm not sure. There was a priest in Donegal recently. He said if we do yoga, tai chi, meditation, we die and go to hell, in the deepest hole of hell, because we've done these things. So what's he going to say about judo? He'll go mad.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know. Can we briefly, if the church would concern itself with the real worries of our age, the poverty and the ignorance and hatred and divisive, nature of society, it would be an awful lot better if they have a list of things that cause grief and misery in the world. I'm pretty sure yoga is
way at the bottom.
Very, very long way down. So when they get all the stuff above it cleared up, then maybe they can tell us about yoga. But until then, I think it's nonsense.
As you would know of me that I don't do churches.
Yes.
But let me address what you've just said, because I think within churches, there are many churches. There are the Amadons and the ignoramuses of Donegal, the parish priest there, who talked the way he talked.
Yes.
There again, there's the man of Africa who was with me the other day.
Absolutely, yeah.
Who's going back into an Ebola-ridden society, unsure of whether he'll, within the 6 months of his tenure there, a year of his tenure there, his head will remain on his shoulders from Islamic terrorism.
Yeah.
There's that. And then there's the two young men who came in here and sat down last Friday, the two new priests of Newry.
Yeah.
Good men and true. And then you have the church of the bishops, some bishops, who say, no, we're not going to have married priests. Doesn't matter that in 15 years' time there will be no more priests. We don't mind that. We're not going to have married priests or women priests.
Yeah.
And the church in which the bishop says, and I'm not publishing the name of that child in the parish bulletin because he was born outside wedlock. Another form of abuse. Or the bishop who says, no, I don't want a concert in my chapel for the starving children of the Horn of Africa. And then who within 2 years of that will say, yes, you may have the cathedral or the church to have your concert for any cause under the sun that's legal, as long as you give us 50% of the take. You have all of that going on.
Yeah.
You have the good, the bad, and the ugly within the notion of church.
Absolutely.
And I think we're right to identify that. Because good spiritual health is as important as good mental health. Well, it adds up to good mental health and good physical health.
Yeah.
It's all there.
Yes, it is. It is. And I think we should criticize the things that are wrong with the church and
stand strong
and cheer them on when they do the right thing, which they do often.
Yeah. And I said this to the Cardinal once when he was on my program. I said, listen, Sean, what you need to do is stand up, swell your chest, fill it with air, and roar your support for the good priests, and condemn and crucify the bad. Yeah. And I thought that was a fair enough thing to say.
Yes.
But there was a diffidence there. There was a kind of I must be careful. You know, this notion of, Jesus was never careful.
Yes, yeah.
Which part of my skeleton is Jesus? That's the thing I want to ask you. Trying to get back to physiotherapy. The helicopter has the Jesus nut. You know where the Jesus nut is in the helicopter?
I don't.
It's the topmost piece of metal on the helicopter. It's the nut that keeps the rotor blades on.
Oh, right.
And the lads call it the Jesus nut.
More than just one.
Yeah. No, and he reckons if that goes, you're gone. So that's oh Jesus, oh Jesus, let me. Here, isn't it great? They're still on ceasefire in Gaza.
It is. It's a great.
And tomorrow's the third day, and the Israelis are saying yes, we will go for an extended ceasefire.
Yeah.
And Hamas is saying, I don't know, we mightn't do that.
I think I feel a little bit uneasy when people start sort of piling onto one side or the other here. I mean, I think we should remember that the people suffering are the civilians on both sides, you know, and that Hamas are making a lot of propaganda benefits from this, and a few thousand dead people on their side are probably worth it for them.
I know what you're saying.
To get a propaganda coup. So I mean, I think it's a horrible situation.
Going to do something different with you.
Okay.
How well he trusts me.
Completely
I have to say, when I was away last week on my tour with Donald, Father Donald, this man loves me so much he wouldn't do the interview with anybody else. I really thank you for that. You're very jolly. You're very good. This here's a piece of writing. Now it's very short.
Okay.
And I because it kind of butts into what we're talking about.
Yes.
And it gives us a little talking. But you don't mind if I do this?
No.
And stay with me. And try to look interested when I'm doing it.
I will try.
Just sort of go like.
That's a thoughtful face. Okay, I'll try.
Anyway, here it is. The problem with going to war, and this applies to Israel and to Hamas as well.
Yes, yeah.
The problem with going to war is that the human being has a tendency to enjoy the battle. Whatever the conflict is. And it doesn't change whether the war be major or the war be minor. We enjoy the roar, the guttural roar of the adrenaline of the battle. That's what I thought. The additional problem is that when we elect to deal the final blow, the coup de grace, if you like, in action or in words, and win the battle of the moment, we have the joy of winning the battle, but we have the horror of losing the wider war. Peace in such a circumstance can be the prize that's lost. I pray, if I do pray this morning, as I write, that the tenuous ceasefire in Gaza will be extended and that the children will begin to grow again in gentleness, just as children should. Dear God, come back from your holiday, start answering the phones again, and come to the aid of the innocents, whom it is said you love. That's the prayer of an optimistic agnostic. 2 people reached out here in Newry this week. They were civil with each other, and at the end of their interview on this program, Steve, they were able to shake hands. Henry Riley of UKIP was able to say to Martin Ward of Centra on the Refryland Road, "We have more in common than we realise." Martin agreed, and the two were talking for 2 enemies, it would have seemed, long after the program ended, 40 minutes later. Wow, what about that? Destination Newry was the facilitator of that interview, And in doing so, Destination Uri contributed to a more peaceful atmosphere in our city. What understanding emerged happened in part because of the innate goodwill of the two people involved. And not unimportantly, because of my declared intention at the start of the interview that I would not allow negativity. Wasn't going to have it. Okay, you might say that my idea on negativity was totally subjective, but then why shouldn't I apply my yardstick? The yardstick of others has been demonstrably flawed. Mm-hmm. And I'm old enough and ugly enough and wise enough now to call the shots. This I did. And maybe my observation is we need to approach a time when the national broadcasters, the BBC, RTE, take a similar stance in the interest of a better island. A Nolan-free culture. No more raised voices, no more anger. Great wisdom, I don't know if you saw it this week, came from the now Parisian Father Aidan Troy. I stood in awe and admiration of what this former much-loved pastor of Ardoyne in Belfast had to say. Mm-hmm. Once much-loved Troy, last week much less loved Troy, for he dared to swim against the Ardoyne current. In the Book of Troy, the citizens of his former caring would have said to the Orange Order, "Walk on by on your return from your 12th of July demonstration. Go well, be happy, and in doing so, and in being so, respect the Catholic population whom you pass." And at the same time, both parties sit down and plan for a peaceful 2015 marching season. Common sense, I'd say. Wisdom, I'd say. Maturity, I'd say. Winners all.
Yeah.
But no, the former parishioners were having none of it, and Aidan Troy was given his very own marching orders. Go away, shut up. But Aidan was right, Steve. What enormous power I suspect there is in wisdom and generosity. And what an example to those in major conflict, Gaza, for example, that previous hatreds can be put aside and a pathway to peace explored. So, as the summer wends its way through the year, and now with autumn beckoning, I pray that people will begin to see the limitations and the injustices held fast at the heart of their own political and religious lives. That they will take the chance of walking the lesser traveled road, the harder path, and in strength offer, wait for it, support to the enemy. Aidan Troy was right. To do the unexpected and the generous thing will enter another element in the formula of life. Something that has within it the mind-boggling concept of change and taking a chance for peace through the apparent weakness of turning the other cheek. Now it seems to me that in turning the other cheek, the injured man takes in, it's necessary physically, you turn the other cheek, you're taking in a wider panorama. You see more.
Yes.
So in turning the other cheek, a more complete vision comes and brings with it knowledge and a clearer pathway to progress, perhaps. And I think that's significant. And I think that ties in with what we're talking about.
It does. It does a lot. Yes, no,
there's little in that you would disagree with.
No, absolutely. I think that I'm reading a book about guerrilla warfare,
yes.
and a very good book, and it talks about counterinsurgency and how perhaps one example was the British in Malaysia, Malaya, where there were a section of the population, the Chinese, the ethnic Chinese of Malaysia, who were very aggrieved, had very little in the world, lived in slums with nothing, and it was a hotbed for communist dissent. And what they did was build them new villages, give them land, and made them happy. And they no longer were interested in fighting, and the whole thing went away.
I have a book I must bring you.
I'm sorry.
No, please, I'm listening. No.
I mean, in the same way that the marching problems over here or in Gaza. I mean, if we could make the other side less unhappy, less aggrieved, they'd probably give us less trouble.
It's the same in my married life.
Yeah.
all the way through the 50, all the way through the 49 years of it.
Yes.
If I had taken the trouble to cause less trouble to the other side,
Yeah.
then she would never have had the brainwave one morning of divorcing me.
Yes. Yes.
But she was just right. I wouldn't forgive her for that. I forgive everything. But the book
Good.
I must bring you, it's an Israeli book. It's called Our Harsh Logic. It's individuals from the Israeli Defense Forces who are now speaking out and who are recorded as so doing
Yes.
against what they were doing in
Yes.
Gaza.
Yeah.
I must bring that to you.
Okay.
And
thank you.
that'll be useful. Now, at the end of all of that, we've got to tell people who you are, where they can get you, and what you can do.
Okay. Well,
He is Steve Eccles of
Ecclesphysiotherapy.com, 47 Old Warren Point Road.
Down
and,
Past.
Yes, and if you have
Eccles.
problems with your neck or your back or your knees or your shoulders or any other bits of you, give me a call and I will see if we can help you.
The Ian Banks of the European Forum on Men's Health said that a healthy back ensures there's no erectile dysfunction.
Well, that's
Or more or less.
that's
So men of a certain age, you know, that's what he feels.
yeah. Well, that's interesting.
It's interesting indeed. Not that it matters when you're 70,
No,
you know,
no.
because you're looking beyond the stars. What about the spacecraft teaming up with the comet?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm fascinated with that.
Yes. That'll be
Traveling at
interesting.
34,000 miles an hour.
Wow. Wow.
8 billion miles away, whatever it is, away from
yeah,
Earth.
yeah.
And
Very good,
the
Jim.
comet and the spacecraft Rosetta are there. They're traveling in tandem. There they are. It's gone
amazing.
round and come November, Rosetta is going to come closer and closer to the comet and land an offshoot down onto the comet, take samples and demonstrate that which is on the comet and of which the comet is made
Yes.
would have ended up on our Earth. Bang! Collision of the comets on the Earth. Bang! Bong! Bing! Coming down. And out of the soup that created, we came. We're going to have
It
some
will
music.
be interesting.
We'll
Thank
have
you.
some music.
And thank you very much. Thank you indeed.
God love you. You're a good man.
No manja, wetani wa, ele lucie, so fazendo.